But we have a quorum, so I think since it's 7:30, I will call the meeting to order. This is the June 9th meeting of the Concord Municipal Light Plant. And we are meeting again on Zoom this morning, although some of our staff are now back in the office, and we'll hear more about that. We're meeting on Zoom for the Governor Baker's executive order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law that was issued in March a year ago because of the coronavirus pandemic. This meeting is being recorded and will be available on the Minuteman Media Network shortly following the meeting. So I'm going to ask, as we have had our practice since we began meeting on Zoom, that we will not be using the chat function, but we will be using the raise hand feature. So if you have a question, please use the raise hand function. And when it's your time to ask a question, we'd appreciate it if you turn your video on, because it helps us put a face to the name as we move forward and have a discussion with the concerned people. And if you dialed in by phone and you'd like to raise your hand, you can do this by pressing *9. And if you've dialed in and you want to speak or unspeak or mute yourself, that is *6. So that's the opening of our meeting. So I just want to review the agenda for a minute. I'm wondering if we can switch items number 7 and 8. So that before we discuss the warrant article related to broadband, that we hear a broadband network update that is part of the agenda. And I thought it may help inform us on a decision on the warrant article.
I think you mean 6 and 7.
Yeah, you're right.
Sorry.
Yep.
I knew what you meant.
Yep, 6 and 7.
I don't have any problems with that, Alice.
It just seems like it would follow a better order for us. So if that's okay with folks, do we need a vote on that, or can we just swap those two articles? I think we can just swap them, right? Do I see a lot of that? Yeah, okay. All right, so our next meeting, we have a meeting scheduled in our agenda. The next meeting will be July 14th. I know that gets into some summertime planning. I'm hoping that July 14th is still available on your calendar and that you'll be able to make that meeting. Does that sound right to everybody, or do you have travel plans that we should know about?
All set.
Okay, so it looks like we're good. A reminder that Sunday, June 13th is town meeting. It begins at 1 o'clock at the Doug White Fields.
Alice, it's unclear whether I will be there on the 14th.
On the 14th, okay?
I'll let you know.
Okay.
I probably won't attend town meeting.
So I think the question is, will there be a quorum at town meeting?
Right.
Because we intended to post a meeting in case you guys needed to deliberate anything. If there's not a quorum, then we don't need to post it.
Well, I will be at town meeting. Wendy, did you say yes?
Yeah.
Brian, 3. That's a quorum.
So we'll go through the process to make sure that if you guys need to deliberate anything, you can.
That's great. Thank you for reminding me about that. I think there are no other announcements, so we can move to the director's update. Dave?
Minutes?
Oh, do we have minutes to approve
Yes.
this time?
We have January and February.
All right. They have been reviewed and circulated.
Yeah.
Do I have a motion?
Well, I just want to mention that there were some small edits I received from Gordon, but nothing that changes content, just wordsmithing.
Okay.
I would, Alice?
Yeah.
I would briefly just like to note that I continue to be concerned about how long these minutes are, that they're essentially a transcript, that they are not consistent with the discussion we had, extensive discussion about this. So I just wanted to register that and suggest that while I will approve them, I approve with a little bit of reluctance, because I think extensive paraphrasing does not encourage crisp delivery of key information.
I appreciate that.
I would also say that in the January 13th minutes, because they were extremely extensive, it was said it was decided in keeping with the open meeting requirements that the minutes could be limited to major points, votes, and their outcomes. So I don't think it's an insignificant issue. I think it's something that takes a lot of time. And I think we should be revisiting this, and that until we have a good answer, the clerk should be, reducing these minutes like good maple syrup.
Thank you, Pam.
I agree.
I think we all agree on that.
Well, all but one, the
All but
actual
one.
clerk. Okay.
I think the important thing is we need to get caught up because we're 6 months behind on the website for posting. And I think it's important to get the minutes done and up on the website timely. So if we could get caught up by the next meeting, that would be great.
Yeah, I have from Karen the next 3 meetings. So I'm going to go through them, pare them back, but probably not as much as this board would like. And then I'm going to send them out and we can review them at the next meeting.
So Brian, can we talk just a second about that? The board, it seems like, is in agreement that the minutes are too detailed and that we should keep it at a higher level of identifying the subject, the brief discussion of the meeting, and then the action that was taken at the meeting, rather than having detail, and refer that anyone looking for detail can look at the MMN video of the meeting. Is there a problem with trying to do it that way as opposed to being as detailed and capturing the synopsis of each individual viewpoint?
I've cut down what I get from Karen, and I will continue to do so. I mean, it's minutes. I'll do my best to cut them back.
Appreciate that. I mean, I think Pam just read from the minutes. There was a commitment that we would.
I understand.
Okay. All right.
Alice, I'll make
Yes.
a motion that we approve the January 13th and February 10th minutes as drafted.
And do I have a second?
Second,
Okay, all in favor, roll call vote. I will go around my screen. Gordon,
Approve.
Wendy, Brian,
Approve.
Pam,
approve.
Alice, approve. I want to just take a moment before we move to the director's update to acknowledge that it is tradition that at following town meeting that we have a new slate of officers. I would like to acknowledge that we're going to do that, and hopefully we will have a new board chair and new clerk that we can vote on at our next meeting. So I have heard from Wendy over the course of the year that she would be willing to be chair for at least part of the year, which is something we should all consider. And maybe perhaps there are other people who are interested in chairing as well. I see Brian's hand is up. Is that volunteering to chair the meeting, being chair of the Life Board in the coming year?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
I would just, I want to note that I am very grateful for Wendy's willingness, given everything she's done. I think given the newness of some of the board members and even notwithstanding both of our different kinds of deep involvement in these kinds of issues, that this is a very important position that I think a seasoned person would be good to have doing for a little while longer. So I, what Wendy said, I think also if Wendy wanted to have her period reduced a little bit, Alice, you had a chairpersonship, so I could see a shared responsibility. The bottom line, though, is that I think that it is wonderful that Wendy stepped up. I think that we need that kind of depth in the chairship, and I applaud her for doing it.
Right.
I have a question.
Wendy, you're on mute.
She's on her headset.
Oh, I'm not on my headset, actually.
Well, we couldn't hear you, but you're not muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, that was strange. I just want to comment that, I raised this opportunity back in January because we had new board members. And so that was really my reasoning, and really recognizing that you were new to the chair as well. So just wanted to offer that opportunity. And, Gordon could do it as well if that was a concern. I just wanted to say that I'm willing to do that. I don't So I need to do the whole year. So if we want to share it, that'd be great too. But just, we can talk about this offline. Now's not the time, but.
Okay, thank you.
So I would very much like to be chair. Is it the sense of the board that I shouldn't be?
It's my sense that we would do well to have the guiding hand of someone who has.
Well, I've watched this board for longer than any other board member here. I know quite a lot about this. I don't understand that argument.
Are we having this discussion now?
I don't think we are having this discussion now. This was to raise the issue that our next meeting, we will elect a new slate of officers of a board chair and a clerk.
Let it be known that I would like to be chair.
Yep, so noted. Thank you. Okay, let's go now to the director's update.
Alice, I don't know, David Allen has his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, David. Yeah, would you like to speak, David?
Raised it back in the discussion of detail in the minutes. I can't recall whether I remarked previously, but that's beside the point. I want to register an alternative view to that which has been put forth by apparently the bulk of the board. Now, it's perfectly reasonable to put a summary at the top of the minutes that delivers the key punch points for any given meeting. It's also true that these minutes may be looked at a decade or 2 decades later. It has happened. Some people have been to a lot of board meetings. Nobody in this group now that I see in front of me has been to probably even half of the meetings that I've been to. I've been here for over 15 years now, well over 15 years. I can report that folks do look back, and it makes a very large difference for those minutes to convey the facts of what actually went down. It's also true that once we're past Zoom, it's not at all clear there's going to be video, and it's damn sure true that folks don't go and watch an hour and a half or 2 hours of video to get the detail. They can search down a written document. I think it would be a fundamental error to get rid of the detail. I point out you can achieve your purpose of summaries very handily with an executive summary. Good morning, let's proceed.
Okay, thank you. Dave, let's go to the director's update.
We have one more hand raised. Do you want to take it?
I honestly don't think we need to talk anymore, spend more time talking about the merits of minutes. I think we can move on.
Okay. So interest in our heating and cooling coaching services continue to be strong, with coaching requests coming in at about a rate of 1 every day and a half. So that's positive. Abode Energy Management just hired 2 new coaches for the Concord Clean Comfort program. Concord residents Ken Hosman and Kim Slack hired, both heat and cooler homes with heat pumps, and bring strong skill set and knowledge to the positions. One of the new coaches replaces one that we hired in January, who transitioned to more of a volunteer role. The other fulfills the plan supported by the grant received by American Public Power Association, which provides funding for 2 initial coaches and a third about 6 months after we started the program. So that we're moving in the right direction there. Applications for the joint CMLP DOER solar rebate program have been very strong as the program winds down at the end of this month. In order to submit all applications by the June 30th deadline, we stopped accepting applications on June 7th. That's allowing us time to process the ones that come in from then to the 30th. If all the MLP solar applications submitted to CMLP are approved by the state, CMLP and DOER matching pledge money will be oversubscribed. because other MLPs have underutilized the program, there's a possibility that DOER will allocate more money towards our pledge. We will submit all the applications with the hopes they will be funded, but there's no guarantees. CMLP's longstanding solar PV rebate program will continue even after the MLP solar rebate ends. As you may recall, at the last meeting, I mentioned that we found an internal wiring issue with one of the two transformers at our substation. Joe Repoff, the assistant director, provided the manufacturers with the details that they requested, and they have committed to make necessary repairs. So the work is scheduled to start on June 14th. This will require us to remove the transformer from service. All the permits have been submitted to Eversource to take that transmission line out so that we can safely work on the transformer. The repairs are expected to take about 3 to 4 days. Once completed, we'll restore the substation normal operation. So far, that's moving where we wanted to. So we'll get that transformer repaired. I want to thank the board members and the town manager for carving out a little time to review and sign the DPU report. We submitted that yesterday, so that was submitted on time. So again, thank you for that. The Rarumbo, formerly Brown Bear and then formerly Mill Hydro contract was coming to expiration. As such, we're able to come to terms with an extension. The contract was extended to November of 2025. At the May Light Board meeting, the board asked us to answer 2 questions about a citizen proposal to create 100% non-carbon emitting rate. The questions that you asked were how many customers would be likely to sign up for such a rate, considering it would cost more than the regular R1 rate, and what would the cost be to implement the new rate. So we've been working on that. I just wanted to mention that because obviously our goal was to be able to have it on this agenda, but we're not prepared for that. So in July, there will be an agenda item to cover that topic in detail. On the personnel side, we've been successful in recruiting a 3rd customer service rep. The candidate is scheduled to start on July 6th. We've also launched a recruitment for line workers, and currently we have 15 applicants. So we're reviewing those as we come, and that recruitment's launched until filled. So we'll start interviewing qualified candidates here shortly. And the last thing, on Monday, June 7th, we executed phase 4 of our restaffing plan. So now the non-essential services employees have returned to the workplace, and so far everything's moving smoothly. And
Great.
That's my update.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? I do not see questions. I have 2 small ones. The work at the transformer will take 3 or 4 days. Is that with an anticipation that there will be no interruption in service during that time?
Yeah, essentially we're transferring all load off of that transformer onto the other one. And this is
Okay.
that, we've done plenty of times. It's a routine switching item for our team. You are running single contingent. So if you had a problem with that transmission line or that transformer, it would be problematic, but we really don't have a choice at this point. The transformer needs to be fixed. And, so they said, 4 days with the anticipation of it being done in 3. Our staff will be up there, providing assistance and if they need us to help them remove stuff with, our trucks, and we will. But, it was really a positive outcome. I was expecting it to be more of a legal issue, and it's not. They've accepted the manufacturing issue.
Okay, great. Gordon has a question.
Just briefly, Dave, thank you for a great director's report. I love hearing all of this stuff. Great work on the solar uptake, that finding and preventing that problem at the substation. That is what I want to hear. And great news on the heat pumps. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
One small question, with employees returning to the office, is the building still now open to customers? Is it open to the public or not yet?
Not yet. The plan is to open on Monday, the 14th, to the public. That's the plan at this point. We're working through some details on that. It could change, but that's what we're planning on doing. And we've been ready to do that for a while. So, you know, I think we're in good shape.
Okay, great. I see no other hands raised. Let's move on to the next agenda item. Thank you, Dave, for that update. I agree with Gordon's comments. Next is a discussion of the advanced meter infrastructure project.
Okay, so we're gonna ask Laura and Carol to kind of give an overview on where we are with this. So I don't know which one wants to take it, but
Carol, do you want me to take that or do you want to do that?
Yeah, go ahead. I also have notes too, so if there's anything to add, I'll jump in.
Okay, great. So the project is moving along as planned. The consultant has been conducting one-on-one interviews with personnel at the plant to gain a better understanding of our operations and our applications. One of the first deliverables that the consultant will be providing is a review of or a summary of the utilities goals, the systems and the applications. So this will include things like an IT map that shows all the different information systems that we currently manage and what a new AMI system would need to interface with. And it'll also be summarizing what they heard were our goals and strategies that we want to achieve with the new system. That will be due and coming out in June. So probably the beginning of June. Sorry, I'm sitting in the dark and I'm trying to turn back on. There you go. Following upon that written summary of our goals, systems, and applications will be a system-wide benefits quantification study. So they're going to have put numbers, dollars, to what they think, what benefits CMLP will achieve with an AMI system. That will be coming out in July. And then the tentative plan is for us to determine the optimal hardware and software procurement strategy in August, and to develop the RFP specifications, the procurement documents, and the evaluation criteria in September. All in preparation of actually issuing an RFP in the September-October timeframe. And so right now, that's where at the beginning of the project we were planning to be. That's where we are right now. So everything is going pretty much according to plan. Would you like to add some more details, Carol? I may have missed.
The only other thing, just to kind of tease out that concurrent with the work on the RFP part of it, we're also working on a communication plan, and one of the consultants has, as Laura mentioned, been conducting those one-on-one interviews. So we do have a couple pieces, actually 3 different legs of this project going on at the same time, with the third one being the system architecture diagramming that Laura had mentioned. So really that's about it. The communication plan is really going to address both internal needs as well as external needs for communicating with our customers about the project.
Great. Are there any questions from board members? Brian?
At what points will the board be able to look at the goals and those different milestones that you mentioned? When will we be able to review those? Is it just at the July meeting? Is that our only opportunity?
Dave, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that we can, once these are published, I believe they can be disseminated. They can even be maybe posted on our website and certainly disseminated to board members.
Okay. Sorry, your microphone isn't working very well.
Did you say? I can't. I'm not hearing Laura. I've missed most of that entire thing, and I didn't want to. I thought it was me, but thanks, Brian. Laura's not coming through.
You sound muffled, Laura.
Well, that's unusual.
Oh, there we go.
That's better.
All right, I'll do a better job this time, Pamela, and it'll be shorter and more succinct. Because I'm
No,
doing
it
it the
wasn't that.
second
It's
time.
just, it's what Brian said. It's really hard to hear.
So the board should be able to review the deliverables that are being provided by the consultants when they are published. The first one will be a summary of the utilities goals, systems and applications, which we expect to be available in June, probably early June. The second one will be a system-wide benefits quantification, which will tell us how much money, the dollars, we would expect to save by utilizing an AMI system. Then, that will be available in July. Then in August, we'll be determining the optimal hardware and software procurement strategy for the system. Because remember, this consists of not only hardware like meters and a communication system, but also software that makes all of it work. That will be in August. And then in September, we'll be developing the RFP specifications, the procurement documents, and the evaluation criteria, all in preparation for actually issuing the RFP for the meters and the communication system, which we expect to happen in the September-October timeframe if all goes well. So that's the plan right now. And this was the plan I was saying from the beginning. This was the timeline we anticipated, and we're currently on the same timeline. So project is moving forward as expected.
And did you also say that you'd be posting this to the website?
Well, I'll let Dave, let me know what the most appropriate way to get this information out, but it will be a public document, right?
Yeah.
You're on mute.
It would be useful if there was a web page that just talked about the AMI effort, and just like there is one for the cost of service study.
Yeah, well, we're definitely planning on making this as transparent as possible. So, the website's obviously a good location for that. And it's something that we'll discuss internally what the best way to go about that is. But it's a good suggestion, Brian. Thank you.
I see no other questions from the board. All right, I think we can move on to the next agenda item, which is a review of our past due accounts and collections. Is that Dave or Carol?
Yeah, I can go over it and Carol can kind of chime in if need be. I will, we have a report that kind of summarizes everything, and I can share that. I don't know if you guys will be able to see it all that great, but I'm going to give it a shot. Can you guys see that?
Not yet, but it's coming.
Yeah, so this is kind of a summary of where we are. It's broken down in 4 categories: electric, water, sewer, and broadband. And, we've been going through the process of collections, and shutoffs would be scheduled for next month. But right now, the total amount that's due is $940,000. You can see that down on the bottom here. The total past due is $596,000, and that's all from all 4 services we provide. So this breaks it down into current, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. We're focused right now on 90 days in terms of the collection and shut off process. But the 30 days past due is $331,000. 60 days past due is $78,824. 90 days past due is $187,000. And then if you look through this, and I'll share this with the board after the meeting, so you can kind of look into it a little bit more if you'd like to. But it kind of breaks out where the bulk of this is coming from, and the bulk of it obviously is on the electric side, which is very typical in terms of past due collections. Carol, I don't know if you want to speak to the process that we've been following in terms of getting customers to get caught up at this point?
Yep, we had gone through several months of communicating with customers via bill messages and bill inserts, and encouraging people to contact our office to either set up a budget plan or just discuss ways that they can get caught up. We've had kind of a slow uptake on people requesting budgets. We've only had 8 residential customers request a budget plan, and for residential customers, we do allow a budget of up to 12-month period. On the commercial side, we've only had 2 requests, and only 1 customer followed through to complete the application and make the first payment that's required to activate the budget plan. We don't normally work with commercial customers to offer them a budget plan, but with the pandemic, this is one of the accommodations that we've made. On the commercial side, we are offering a 6-month budget period. And, as I said, right now, we only have 1 commercial customer that's taken us up on that. Meanwhile, we have had the CSRs starting to make some phone calls and emails. And, so far, people have been very pleasant. We haven't had any angry, difficult customers to work with as of yet. People are very appreciative of what we've been doing to help. And they've been, it seems like very eager to get caught up. We've been running this report pretty much every day or every other day. And, it's steadily been dropping maybe between $4,000 and $6,000 a day. So we're moving in the right direction. The next steps, you may recall the DPU moratorium on us being able to do disconnections is lifted as of July 1st. So our first scheduled round of actual physical disconnects will be on July 6th, which is the Tuesday following the July 4th holiday. And we'll be looking at 90-day past due and customers that have greater than $100 balance to target those people first for disconnections. After that, the next couple of rounds of disconnects will be July 20th. And then for the month of July, the last one would be on July 28th. DPU also has a moratorium in place for commercial customers on municipal utilities not being able to charge late fees until the end of January 2022. So as of February 2022, we will put those late fees back, back on. And I think that's about all I have. I think that's about all I have for updates.
And I think just to add to what Carol said, our process that we're following here is very deliberate, and it's in such a way so that the CSRs can actually handle the volume. We're trying not to overwhelm them, but also trying to work with the customers. So a little different than we've done in the past, but very strategic reason.
One other just quick note, we were working with the DPU office late last week, and it was on an account that had escalated. And in the process of talking to the DPU, we had gone through and explained all the different steps that we've been taking for kind of reactivating our delinquency process and collections. And the DPU officer was so impressed with how we've been handling this. They asked if we can actually send them a little document on what we've been doing so that they can share that with other municipalities. So that made us feel pretty good.
Yeah. I see a hand up, Brian.
Yeah, so yes, Carol, you're doing a wonderful job with a difficult problem. The report showed up to 90 days delinquent. How many accounts do we have that are, more than 90 days, 120 and, 180 days delinquent?
Yeah, that we don't track, I think after, it might have been you that raised this question in a previous meeting, and after that meeting, Matt and I had looked at reporting that would tell us that, but I can get that information to you, Brian, but for our collection purposes, we just pretty much lump everything together 90 days and greater.
Okay. And you don't break out commercial separate from residential?
No, I believe there is reporting in place that would break it out for us.
Okay. And so with the commercial sector, I know that the pandemic was very difficult on a lot of businesses. I'm glad to see you're offering the payment plans and options for them. Is the bulk of the 180,000 commercial or residential?
Residential.
Okay. And about how many total customers are we talking about?
Off the top of my head, I don't have a good answer for you. I can find out though.
Are we thinking like over 100, under 100?
It's way
Over
over.
100. Yeah, it's way over.
Way over 100 residents.
Yeah, when we first started talking about this, it was up around 1,000 amongst the 30, 60, 90.
Yeah.
We haven't looked at that number in a little bit, so I know it's down, but it's a large number.
Yeah, 1,000 would be a significant number of residents. Okay, thank you.
You guys saw a hand up, Gordon? I think you have to unmute, please.
This may be a kind of a stupid question, but all 4 of those rows, those are all ones that that are being administered together, right? So it's water, sewer, telecom, and electricity. So those all fall under the same billing system. Is that right?
That's correct.
And you're implementing the late payment for all 4 of those services. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Great. And I just, sorry, this is out of band, but I'll just say, I would love it if Concord consolidated its billing across even further, like, because, I got to log onto this weird website in order to pay my trash and property tax and stuff. I just love it to all be collected together. And we've got automatic payments set up for these services, not so for the other ones. So anyway, just a request from a humble resident.
Thank you, Gordon.
Gordon, we did talk about that when we were going through the process. So it's not something that hasn't been looked at. It's just something that hasn't been implemented at this point. I don't know that it will, but we were forward thinking about it.
I just want to thank Carol and the team. I know how difficult a job this is. I'm just curious. I know we've talked about this at previous meetings over the years. How does this year look compared to other years, given the pandemic? Are we much higher in delinquencies than other years, or is this about the average that we expect from year to year?
We are higher than normal.
Yeah.
I mean, we're higher than normal, but it's also worth mentioning that we have people that don't pay their bills in the winter because they know they don't have to.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that we anticipate getting caught up quicker than the ones that are actually struggling.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for diligence and sensitivity with which you're handling this. So appreciate it.
Well, I have a great team in place and they do a great job.
Yeah. Thank you. I don't see any other comments from the board. Let's move on now to, as I mentioned, we switched items number 6 and 7. So let's move to a broadband network update to hear where we currently are in our broadband services.
All right, Greg's on today. He's our telecom director, and he's going to kick this off.
So I will introduce myself, Greg Marsnick. I know we attempted this about a year ago and I had some technical issues. So the broadband, as we know, I think the biggest issue is we did lift the pandemic has taken a toll on everyone. As everyone knows, we suspended installations during the pandemic with the exceptions of education, medical, first respond, and new move-ins. We announced the lift of that moratorium as of May 3rd, and we are now in the process of reviewing the backlog. The backlog as it sits today is approximately 420 people. I'm starting actually today to send out an email. We were periodically just surveying the customers to see who wanted to get on that list who wanted to have it installs completed when the moratorium was lifted. Of course, we had no idea when it would happen. And we had quite a few people that said that they were not interested at this time for multiple reasons. That was about a 30% drop off, but we believe now that COVID is hopefully behind us, that number will be less. So we're thinking our numbers probably in the area of about 375 to 400 backlog would be my guess. I'll have a better handle on that in the next couple of weeks. That is our primary focus at this point. We have done, Dave, can I share my screen?
Let me just check.
Possibly do that.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. So our approach to the backlog is first priority will be first in, first served to the best of our ability. We also know that's going to be a little bit of a challenge because what we don't, we need to do this in an efficient manner. So what we've done is we've created I call it a cluster map. These dots actually represent the people in the backlog. So we've been going through the neighborhoods and we're going to, we want to do, again, as we said, efficiently. We have determined we'll probably have to bring in an outside contractor to help us catch up with that. That outside contractor would focus mainly on the outside installation process, whether it's from the street, from the pole or underground through conduit. And we're going to kind of use a combination of this clustering and the first come, first serve approach to getting people installed. But if we have a truck in a neighborhood that has 8 people, 10 people that want the installation, of course, we're going to focus and try to be as efficient as possible. So that's our initial strategy. Also going to be sending out a confirmation email just to, again, get that number, get a real true number. I'm going to start that today, as I said. So probably like I said, in a week or two, we'll have a really good idea on our strategic approach to how the backlog will be cleared up and hopefully have some kind of a timeline, but it will take some time. It's going to be probably at least 8 months, I'm going to say, before we clear the backlog, is my guess. We've also been working with Carlisle and Fire and Police Radio. So we just finished, that project was looked at just before I came on board. We completed the first connection with Carlisle about 6 months ago, and we just completed the second connection with Carlisle with the Middlesex School this past couple weeks. Also, the state is looking at a regional emergency services type of approach, and we're going to be involved in that as well. They're looking at us because we do have the fiber and the backbone to handle that with the surrounding towns. And we're looking at network design. Right now, we've been looking at that for about 4 or 5 months now. We're looking at how we can improve the network and bringing more, just make sure that we're ready to bring on more people as the application grows. Any questions?
So I'm assuming there'll be some board questions. I'm just going to expand my screen so I can see all board members. I think Brian has his hand up.
Yeah, so
And
you
Gordon.
said you wanted to, Greg, you wanted to bring in a consultant or additional staff to help you with the installations.
Yes. So Brian, just on that particular piece, normally we would do the install 100% ourselves, but because, we have what Greg talked about for numbers, in order to get caught up, we're going to need the help. And our techs will focus on the installation inside and in the buildings and structures. And we'll have the contractors come in and group, a pair of 10 to 12 drops from the pole to the house per day. Some of the contractors that we spoke with prefer to have a list of, say, 30 to 40 places to go to be efficient. And that's where the cluster map that Greg put together, and you just saw a snapshot of one area. And the reason why I showed it that way is if you showed the whole town, you can't
just,
because the dots are so big. But that's going to help us, send a contractor into a neighborhood, take care of 10 to 12 services, and then our staff can follow and do the installation. And so there's going to be a higher expense there than we budgeted. And I think it's important for the board to recognize that. But I don't think we have a choice at this point. We, being shut down for as long as we were, we really need to get caught up.
yeah. And do you have a relative expectation of that expense?
We're working on pricing now, so it would be premature for me to say.
Okay. And you expect that it will take about 8 months to clear the backlog. And that's with the extra help.
That's what we're forecasting, yeah.
And that includes continued growth with more requests.
That doesn't include the continued growth. That includes the backlog. So
All right.
as that number increases, the problem only further escalates.
So it sounds like a year until we get back to normal.
That's my anticipation and hope.
Okay. And you feel that the permanent staffing that we have is what we need a year from now?
Once we
You
get
don't-
through this backlog, yes.
Yeah, you don't think that hiring additional staff permanently is a good solution to the backlog?
It doesn't, right now, it doesn't make financial sense to add staff based on the revenues that we have.
Okay.
If you look back at the budget, it's revenue positive. It's in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
But, as we increase with numbers, we're going to continue to look at that. We have budgeted for our second network engineer, and we are planning to recruit that. And we have an open network technician that we're planning to start recruiting for as well. So, 4 technicians, a network engineer, and a director is a pretty good place to be at this point.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? I see Gordon and then Wendy. Both would please unmute so we can hear you.
Thank you for that, Greg. I look forward to hearing from you more often in the future. And then just a quick question of the 420 backlog. Are any of those in group apartment settings, communities, residential areas, apartment complexes? Or are those all individual standalone residences?
There's a combination of both.
Wendy?
Yeah, great. Thanks for the update. I'm kind of curious, do we think in light of COVID, are we seeing a new trend in installation requests that people are sort of having more home office usage, and that's part of the trend that you're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, COVID obviously created that scenario, and we answered the bandwidth issue. We did upgrades with our internet providers over the last year, more than doubled our bandwidth capabilities. So because we anticipated that would be, and that we would probably not see a big drop off as well.
I guess sort of the next question, which maybe you're not there yet, but thinking long-term, 5 years strategically, sort of, are you starting to think forward around additional services and functionality to leverage with your setup, or have we started those plans?
So I have looked at additional services, and there's some real gray area out there for what we would, what the revenue from providing other content, telephone and things like that it's a real question on whether it's worth it.
Yeah, and in the past, when we ran the numbers and did the business models for that, it just didn't make financial sense. It wasn't going to support the investment. And that's why we opted to go with just broadband services at the time.
And I will not name the town because, I will just don't need to, but I did speak to a town recently and they actually said run away from telephone services, actually.
Thanks, that's helpful. And I know our priorities are like here and now with COVID and getting back up and running. I just didn't know where we were thinking from a service perspective. Thank you.
Are there other questions from board members? I do not see hands. So I have a couple of questions. Oh, wait, did I just see something?
Yes, it's me, Alice.
Oh, sorry. You weren't on my screen. I'm sorry. You're on the second
Oh.
page. Go for it.
I just didn't make the cut. Sorry. No, I'm not a board member, but it's one of the things I wanted to add, in addition to getting a kick out of Greg's very Monty Python way of describing response to the phone service. One of the things we're looking at is the American Recovery Plan Act. One of the identified uses is, they kind of said generically broadband infrastructure. There's like 1,001 uses for ARPA money, and we have probably as many ways we could spend that money, those funds. We're going to get about 5.6 million under the current projection, and the town has a couple of years, I think, until 2024 to spend that money. And so one of the things we're going to look at is, because we're fortunate to have our own broadband business, are there strategic investments we could make? I think my first priority would be economic vitality, which would be making sure that broadband coverage in the business districts is good, and what can we do to incentivize that? But then also, because Wendy, you made the connection between the pandemic and telework and the growth in that. And I think that's one of the things that the ARPA guidance is intended to address. So like I said, we have a long list of things that we think we want to look at for the use of those funds. But I would just say to the board that broadband is high on that list. But employee wages kind of stalled out here during the pandemic because of the budget reductions we made. Like I said, economic vitality is a priority, and even though things are bouncing back, it's like when you look at what happened to restaurants and stores, you can almost analogize with our installations. They're coming back, and the pace is normal, but the ground to be regained and losses for businesses, and in our case, for lack of installations, it just doesn't happen overnight. And you can't charge enough for a sandwich to make up for a year's worth of lost revenue. And so we're kind of in that same boat as a business entity. So I just want to put that out there. Basically, that's a teaser for a larger discussion to come, hopefully in the next. Now, once you get past town meeting, have a little bit of time to get our hands around where things are at. Greg and Dave and I and our CIO Jason Bolger are gonna start having conversation about what's our priority and what's kind of step one and all that.
Thank you. Gordon.
Just super quick, I just say that as a COVID work at homer, I have found that Comcast, even though it's really fast downloading, is really crummy uploading. So I had to upload a 20 gigabyte volume, and it took 24 hours. And then I went and paid them an extra $20 a month and bought a better modem, and I was able to reduce that to 12 hours. I don't think that I'd have that same limitation if I were a broadband customer. So there's an opportunity there for us.
Yeah. Thank you. So I have two small questions. If we have a backlog of 400 and some requests for customer broadband, what is our average capacity for installation on any other year? Is 400 an average installation number for the town of Concord on an average? Like, where are we? Will we always be in a backlog of 400 if we put all of our efforts on the current backlog?
So, in the past, we had, always targeted about 300 customers a year. That was what we, budgeted for. Greg and I have taken a look at the process, and we believe we have a way to increase that to 450 customers. And so that's what we're trying to do, change the mindset of the way we go about the installation to make it more efficient. And I think, that right there, even if we hit our target that we now have set, that's just the backlog. So that's why we need the contractors on board to help us get caught up.
But my worry is that the backlog is going to take 8 months. And during those 8 months, we could have as many as 300 or 400 new requests. which is extending our backlog, almost doubling that. So I'm wondering, are we ever going to catch up? How do we get to the point at which we're meeting demand at a reasonable schedule without telling people we'll get to you in a year from now?
Yeah, and it's a great point, Alice. We were backed up significantly early on in this, and we got ourselves out of it. We're in the same boat now, and we obviously know a lot more now than we did then. So I think we're going to keep an eye on the process and the help that we need, but the idea is to get caught up and also to manage the new installs as well. But it's definitely an issue. I'm glad you identified it, because that's stuff that we're talking about internally.
Yeah. All right. Any other guy? Laura? Scott?
If I might make an unsolicited comment, as a business, the pace of installations.
I think you need to come closer to your microphone or something.
As a business, the pace of installations needs to be carefully thought out, because when you think about it, it's a capital intensive, relatively business for us, because we cost quite a bit to install. And then you expect to be repaid that through monthly, reimbursements to the light plant over time. But how many people can you reasonably sign up for a year? It's a capital question. How much capital do you want to put out there per year? And extend the payback over time. So it's not just a capacity question of like how many people do we have to install the wires, but there's also the business side of it of what's the appropriate pace at which to deploy capital for this business.
Mhm. I appreciate that comment.
Can I build on that? Alice?
Yeah,
Sorry.
I see you.
Laura makes an excellent point, and I think in later on the agenda, I very much appreciate, as a relatively new person here, how valued the broadband services are by the community. But it is a business. It is not like a general fund, thing that we provide as a community benefit. It's a business enterprise. And I think that sometimes there's a transposition of a community benefit versus a business enterprise. And I know this board bears it in mind, but I think it's a good reminder that we have to operate this like under sound business principles. It's not like a thing that we can do with general fund revenue that can benefit everybody for the sake of their property taxes. It's a very different model, and I think we really need to bear that in mind.
Thank you. So from the position of a board chair, it occurs to me that perhaps I have been remiss in the last year, or maybe the board has as well, that we really do need to focus part of our meeting agenda every month on broadband issues. They are very big, they're meaningful, they are, the growth industry basically, and we are all at risk of cybersecurity issues. And I think that going forward, we will have broadband be a topic on our agenda. And I think it's incumbent upon all of us to gain the knowledge and expertise to help guide the decision-making, not the day-to-day operations, but the larger policy decisions. So I think that that's my goal for moving ahead with the discussion of broadband at this level of the board. And I hope you all agree with that.
No, that's our intention, exactly what you just said. Because we have such a backlog and there's so many important pieces to it. It's something that should be discussed, even if it's even a 10-minute conversation, be talking about it.
But when we're busy catching our breath, it's difficult to think ahead to the bigger picture, like providing services to Carlisle or other emergency services along, a distribution system. There are big questions facing us going forward that I think that this board can provide strategic input into.
Yep.
And I think I'd like to see this on our agenda from now on as an issue to discuss.
Yeah, agreed.
All right. Any other comments?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Brian. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I agree that broadband for many years has not been on the agenda on a monthly basis. As a board member, I don't feel I fully understand the business. it's something that grew. It started very small and it started to grow, and I think it does need more oversight. Steve, you had mentioned that this is a business. It's an enterprise fund, which is a pseudo government business. So it isn't purely a business. I've seen those discussions previously about the light plant being a business. And the light plant does do a lot of things for common good. So it's not clear cut that it's just a cutthroat business. And I don't want people to get that impression.
I believe
it
the
is.
words I used were business principles, not maximize profit.
Say that again. Sorry, I didn't hear you.
I said I used the words business principles very intentionally. I don't think we're in it to maximize profit, but we do need to operate under sound business principles, is what I think I said.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. I just want to make sure that the interpretation of that is not that this business has to have high returns and it should be profitable and things like that. But yes, I think broadband is growing to the point now where it needs more oversight, and putting it on our monthly agenda is great. But our next agenda topic, we'll talk more about that. Thanks.
I don't see any other comments from the board. I do see a couple of hands raised, and I think it's valuable to take these two citizen comments. Start with Pamela Dritt and then Mark Howell.
Hi, Pamela Dritt, 13 Concord Green, Unit 4. Can you send, one, are there any plans to allow me in Concord Green to request the broadband? I think there are a lot of people in my situation who would like to have it, whose condo complex board is not interested or educated about how this works. Also, could you send, we are going to be in your neighborhood on such and such a date doing installation notices out to the neighborhood when you are in the cluster of, when you are planning the cluster of catch-up installations, because I bet you could get a whole bunch of very less expensive signups through that. I know that my partner Andy got his because he saw the truck across the street. And so it was not a year wait, it was right immediate. And please consider sending to neighborhoods in which you're going to do the installation in advance. Now would be an opportunity for you to sign up. I agree about it being run a business like CMLP, but the primary purpose for those businesses is the public good at a reasonable price to benefit the public. So.
Thank you, Pamela. Good point.
Another question. Can you please, I've been to a lot of board meetings over Zoom, and it's wonderful. And I think you all are magnificent. Could you please put back the participants so that we can see who's at the meeting? Right now, all we see is a raised hand button. We can't even put the little emotions like the thumbs up, which would allow us to react. It's not a public meeting. It doesn't feel like a public meeting if we don't even know how many people are there. And I know that's possible to do because the planning board does it. Okay, and other meetings do it. So could you please do that for our benefit?
I can take a look at the settings.
I'm sorry?
I can take a look at the settings.
Okay, great, thank you. Mark Howell.
Hi, it's Mark. I would just note also, and Alice, you had invited us to turn on our video when we had a comment. However, I'm also not seeing that ability in this meeting setting. So
Oh,
that's why I'm not turning on my video.
thank you for that. I didn't realize.
Yeah, and just picking up on Pamela's last point, I think it's also many of the boards are publishing packets that include the minutes that are being reviewed as well as other documents before the meetings. And we know that we always have had those available in person. And I would encourage this board to adopt that as well, so that those of us that do attend the light board meetings have the benefit of seeing what materials are going to be presented. Specifically to broadband though, many of you know, and I should introduce myself as well, 668 Nersnack Hill Road. And of course, you're all aware that I was the former manager with responsibility to broadband and did the startup. And Greg, it's nice to meet you. I would like to mention that contractors were a part of our initial installation strategy. So this is a return to, sounds like it's a return at some point. The contractors, I guess, were not used. The clustering was also a portion of that initial strategy for developing the service. One thing that I think is important to note is the broadband business is a subscription business, and it's demonstrated over time to have extremely stable subscription rates. There are key metrics that I would suggest the board would want to understand. You touched on some of them. Subscription growth is important. The subscription growth actually was consistently rising over the first 5 years. We were installing faster and faster. So 300 was a target for 1 year, but we raised those targets over time. And the capacity of the business to support additional installations is actually a function of what is the subscriber base at any given time. So that should be a moving number. In other words, when you only have 100, 500 subscribers, maybe you can afford to do 30 installations or 50 installations that year. But by the time you have 1,000 subscribers or 1,500 subscribers, you are then generating a capital. And I would point out that based on the current enterprise budget book, broadband is projected to have a net income level of 20% or $300,000 for FY22 versus the light plant, for example, which is down around 4.1%. So it is throwing off that free cash, and the discussion that you're embarking on is one about how to best utilize that. The last point I'll make for this portion of the discussion is to Wendy's question about services. Don't just think about should we add video or telephone or one of those other things. And I actually agree with the comments so far. We've looked at that before. It's not particularly profitable, but service expansion and what scale the operation needs to be sustainable are very important questions. And territory, there was an allusion to the natural collaborations that go on with our neighboring communities, and the previously expressed interest in many of those communities to have the broadband service be there. And that is, in my opinion, likely to be the path to sustainability. So these are really important questions, and I can't express strongly enough that I think the board's ongoing attention to this is very important. However, with the very large task now of, yes, it is at least a year's worth of backlog that needs to be addressed. And the fact that there is at least 2 open staff positions that are not, I don't see the resources available to staff at the moment to address those large questions, even as they're trying to recover from the pandemic situation. So thank you for your attention. And I really do encourage you to remain focused on this important topic.
Great, thank you. Any other comments before we move on to the next discussion item? I do not see any raised hands from the board or participants. So let's move on to the next topic, which is very germane to this conversation. We are reviewing the warrant article number 41 for broadband. We talked about this at our last board meeting as well, and deferred our conversation, which I'm glad we did for this meeting. I want to note for those who may or may not have seen, there have been some changes to the language of the warrant article from when we discussed it a month ago. And that's available if you want to pull it up on your computer. It's available at the town website under town meeting materials. And you can take a look and see what the change of language is. Principally, if I get this right, the changes are in the membership of the committee that's being suggested be established, a citizen committee, and the reporting structure that it would be reporting this. It's proposing that a citizen committee reports to the select board as opposed to, as it was originally written, to the town manager. So to begin our conversation, has everybody had a chance to review the warrant article, either in its previous state or the most current language of it? I see one thumbs up. Do I see another thumbs up, Wendy's up, and can't see Pam, but I think Pam, we can't
Pam,
hear
you're
you.
muted. You're muted, Pam.
I'd like to see what it says currently. What is the number again? I'm getting it on my,
It's in the handout.
41.
yeah. Okay,
I
got it.
believe it's around page 83 of the materials handout on the website.
Okay, thank you.
So what
might- I'm going to
uh,
share my screen so that Pam can see it.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you.
So to recap, this article is a citizen petition requesting that a citizen committee be established to basically determine the strategic goals and direction for Concord's broadband by eliciting the support and input from certain segments of our population, our business community, real estate community, and then others that are appointed by either the town manager or the select board. So I guess I'm going to open this up for discussion and questions. I see that Gail Heyer is here, and I'm sure Mark Howell is available as well to answer questions about the warrant article. And I'm going to just open the floor to the board for discussion at this point. Are there particular questions or thoughts that you'd like to share with our public or with each other?
Yeah.
I see a bunch of hands. I'm going to start with Brian and Gordon.
Is this a temporary committee or a permanent committee? It says to do a study.
I believe it says the study is due within 1 year before town meeting 2022, which I'm assuming is the sunset of this committee.
So
And if
1
that's
year.
not correct, I'd like to hear from the petitioner.
Actually, I see Gail has her
Yep, I
hand
do see
raised.
that.
Okay.
Gail?
Hi, yes. Thank you. Yes, my intent was that the committee would prepare a report, and then after the report is made in time for 2022 town meeting, just in case there are things that would be appropriate for town meeting to address that are in the recommendations, then the committee would be completed, its charge would be completed. And I did want to address, Alice mentioned that the committee would determine the strategic goals for the broadband, and that's actually not really, that's not the main point. The point is very specific, these 3 items, which are, recommending appropriate solutions based on, the experience of the committee and doing surveys and talking to residents. Looking at those 3 things, like how do we expedite installation? And a lot of discussion happened around that today, which was really good. Exploring barriers to subscription growth. Why aren't people subscribing if they're not? And then also, investigating opportunities for expanding fiber into homes and into businesses. So, strategy would certainly be part of the recommendations, but it's not at all meant to preempt what, the town is doing. It's really just, I see an opportunity for the citizens to weigh in here and really increase awareness about fiber and its benefits. And that's the goal of the committee, not to like supplant or to really get a lot into strategy. I mean, certainly maybe one of the recommendations is, hey, there should be like a citizen, committee to continually look at broadband, but that's not what this is.
Mhm. Thank you. So I'm going to return to the board for comments. I see Gordon.
I guess this would be a question to Gail. Why would you want the select board to choose the membership rather than the town manager?
Yeah, can folks still hear me?
Yes.
Thanks. Yeah, so I spoke with a lot of people who saw this article in the Warrant, and in the beginning, I really thought like maybe the select board just didn't care. I just didn't see a lot of interest in the article. I thought this was kind of like a niche thing, but in talking to citizens and around town who were interested in this, I sense that there is a broader interest. And is everyone still, can you still hear me? Oh, okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Stop sharing, thanks. Yeah, I sense that there was just a broader interest in this topic, and that the select board would be a better, what's the word? Person to pick the members.
So in effect, like if the town manager wanted to shut this down, then you could avoid that by giving it to the select board, basically. Taking that control over this away from the town manager, I guess. I don't know. Because I got to say that I'm on a board that with membership that was selected by the town manager. I did 6 years on another board that was chosen that way. Not all the groups in town are work that way, but I don't know. I'm kind of used to it. I think that it's a good job. I think it makes a lot of sense to have the town manager do that. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, the town manager, I think, I don't have it in front of me, would maybe appoint one person, but I mean, this is just the appointing authority. So, and then the reporting comes at the end. So I wasn't anticipating a huge level of involvement by either the town manager or the select board in the workings of the committee. It's just, how it's structured, how it's set up. So
I have a similar question, I think, along the lines of whether it's a select board or town manager. The town manager is the general manager of the light plant, and it seems a little odd to me to have a citizen committee that whose role is to identify barriers and develop a growth strategy and think about what are the current problems with subscription rates, reporting not to the general manager who has the power to be able to enact changes or recommendations. To me, it seems a little backwards, that it would seem like the general manager would benefit from such a recommendation and reviewing a report.
Well, he actually, the way I set it up is that the town manager and the select board would receive the report. So, certainly some aspects of the report would probably be appropriate for the town manager to address, and other aspects, possibly the select board. So that's the way I set it up. So the report would go to both the town manager and the select board.
I don't see that.
Okay, I'll have to take a look.
It may be there, but I don't see it.
Okay.
And it says to determine whether the town will urge the town manager to increase the availability of fiber optic communications.
Yeah,
so it's written to the town manager, but everything else it's a committee that would be appointed by the select board and reports to the select board and not the town manager. So I didn't quite understand that. It feels, if we have a citizen committee whose job it is to set direction for broadband and to bring back broadband interests, it should go to the person who's responsible for it, to me.
Yeah,
So
the way I said it, because I think the town manager has the authority, has the power to do more in this area. So I thought it was appropriate to urge the town manager, say, yes, I think, the citizens really want the town manager to do more with broadband. That's appropriate. But I think this, to the extent that there could be a reason that town meeting might, authorize additional funding, or, maybe, I don't know, I don't want to make up what the committee ideas the committee might come up with. But I just thought there could be other things that the select board, could take an interest in, not just, operational stuff.
Mhm. So actually, I reviewing it again, you're right. Item C does say that the report goes both to the town manager and the select board. I was wrong. Thank you. So are there other comments or thoughts from the board before I ask a few more? I see Pam and Gordon and Brian. Oh, no, that's a wall board behind you. Sorry. Pam and then Gordon.
Yeah, thanks. I have just comment and question. First of all, I'm completely supportive of the equitable access of all people to broadband. I think it's a wonderful objective, and I share the objective that that Gail and others have articulated. My question is more about governance. It's not about the merits of this at all. It's about governance, and I think I raised it earlier. I want to make sure that by creating another committee, we're not really just becoming maybe a little redundant and confusing with respect to the need to think through this objective. And the reason I say that is just that if it's being done by the light board, by the light plant, and if the light plant particularly needs better guidance and better encouragement and more resources to make the goal achievable, then I wonder whether we need another committee. And I just want to make sure that maybe Dave and Stephen Crane can speak to this, but is this essentially a function that is inherently inside the light plant's purview and needs to be there because there's so many issues that we heard earlier in this meeting about the way this needs to operate. So that's one question. The second is, would there be light plant staff on this committee? And how would the light plant, if the committee were created, how would the light plant assist? And then finally, Gail, I thought I heard you say that your primary objective was to kind of get not the strategic direction, but more just getting more awareness. I maybe misunderstood that. That doesn't sound consistent with what the actual charge is, but is your objective now not so much to step in and create strategic direction in a kind of granular way, but rather just to make sure this is a mechanism to get awareness increased? So those are my questions.
Yeah, well, I guess it's a multi-faceted, there's a few reasons why I wanted to do this. And primarily, like you mentioned, Pam, it's the equity thing. I mean, I just think it's really not fair that some people are being asked to wait an indefinite period to get broadband. And I don't see that the town currently has a good way to get there. So, and I think, by creating more public awareness and, the more people know about something, the better it gets. I mean, if it's like this small thing that only a few people know about, how is it going to improve? So, yeah, I just felt like it's an appropriate time to have citizens, weigh in and be creative and come up with some suggestions. I mean, like I said, it's a short-term committee. come up with the recommendations, and then that's it. I think there's a lot of opportunity right now, things that the town is missing out on that this committee could be working on. Were there some other questions there? I know you mentioned.
Well, no, I might, yeah, thank you. That's very, very helpful. And I gather you don't think that can be achieved in a less elaborate way. So I guess your answer is that you need this committee, this elaboration, to make sure that we get that word out and we increase the opportunity. The other part of my question, perhaps maybe goes to, as I said, Dave and Stephen, is this something that can be done within government? And are we complicating matters unnecessarily? I was the chair of the Energy Future Task Force, which has been analogized here, but I think there might be some differences there. I'm not sure, but I'm not foreign to, nor do I disagree with committees, but but I think this is an important question because committees can, you know what I'm saying? So if Stephen and Dave have.
Yeah. I should say first that I do have a hard stop at 9, so it's not my intention to get the last word here. But I've said from the very beginning, and I had a conversation with Dale about the article, and I said, I support the goal of getting more broadband out. I think it has to be done, and as I said, in a sensible way, using sound business principles. But yeah, I think we want to grow the business. I even think Mark articulated a vision for business growth. But I think if we started in the previous agenda item talking about the challenges we've had, and I've been here, almost 2 years, and the vast majority of that has been spent in a pandemic. And we just simply haven't had the opportunity to really get on track and develop that strategic vision. And now Greg and David have just laid out a plan for kind of getting back on that track, and we want to build on that momentum. But I guess in terms of like town manager versus select board, I think the select board and I work very well together, and so if it was the select board, we would work well together on managing this. But there's a roles and responsibilities component to this when you talk about the word governance, Pamela. Yeah. That I think is not related to broadband at all. There's a larger issue on roles and responsibilities and governance and what citizens expect versus what, say, the governance structure contemplates. I see, and I think to some extent with the transition from a longtime town manager to a new town manager, that's probably part of this, where there's a community familiarity with with newness and transition and a whole bunch of other things not related to broadband or the other issues that are on the warrant at all. But that doesn't mean it doesn't mean that having a select board appointed committee is necessarily an inherently bad thing. But under the comment in the gaps you made, do we need a citizens committee to oversee broadband? Under the governance structure, that is the light board. And so, while if the town meeting voters decide that they need a different committee to achieve the objectives set forth in the petition, then that's what town meeting voters are going to decide. And I think we'll all, work hard to try and, work with the committee and get the report and take its recommendations very seriously. But if you're asking, is there a gap in the governance structure with regard to trying to achieve these goals? I guess my view of it is there's not currently a gap. But again, I think that town meeting voters will have that choice.
Okay. Could I wrap up mine by just asking Dave what Dave thinks about this? Or I don't want to put Dave on the spot either. Dave, tell me you've gone too far, stop,
No, it's fine. I honestly don't think this is necessary. I think we have the capacity internally. The light board, as Stephen said, has the authority here. So I don't see a need to complicate things. I look at some other MLPs that have 2 and 3 boards and committees that they report to, and it's not a good scenario. So for me, I don't think it's necessary.
Thanks.
Gordon?
I mean, at the last meeting, I spoke actually somewhat positively about the idea of getting some community input about the pace, some of the decisions that we've made it as a board. In spite of the fact that I actually really believe that we've been making the right decisions all along. So this kind of feels a little bit like second guessing. Nevertheless, I'm open to feedback from the community. Sure, we could speed up installations. It would push us away from profitability. That's a decision that the town as a whole could take on. And then you wouldn't, there'd be some financial consequences. But that doesn't mean that it requires a whole new governance structure. And that's where I think, Steve, your comments were very helpful. I think trying to separate the question. This is about creating a new committee, whereas the thing that I felt was kind of useful was just getting the sense of the town. Are we doing this right? I think we are. And I think that if we explain it this way to town meeting, the town meeting's going to agree with me and the board that we've got a deliberate, well thought out plan. We could tweak it and maybe we'll accelerate it a little bit. Maybe, I don't know if that makes sense. But that doesn't, the other thing is that let's say that this committee comes back at us a year from now and says, we've decided, and now you need to do this, that you need to be capable of implementing fiber to every home in town. I mean, like that is a huge change in our approach, because we're just taking them in as in an optimal way. We're doing the ones that are cheapest and easiest to get the most people covered as quickly as possible. That's totally different than finding that farm out in the very corner of the countryside there covered too. So, I don't think that I'd actually embrace a goal like that, not until we were a lot further down the road. So I guess what I'm saying is that they could come up with recommendations that I wouldn't be on board with. So anyway.
Wendy, thank you, Gordon.
There was a comment during the public hearing about having a committee brings value because it has the potential to bring additional expertise to the table, to review and explore different ideas. And I just want to represent that because I think there's value in that. At the same time, when I look at this article, I feel like it is the job of the light plant to do this function that's here. And we did hear a little bit today about what we do envision doing. And I think, this committee wouldn't hurt that, but I think it's not going to keep the plant from moving forward now. I mean, we need to get the backlog done, and we're going to do that. I have no doubt that we won't. So we may be well on the path of achieving this by the time, the next town meeting in 22 comes along. So I'm not necessarily in favor of this. I'm not opposed to it going in place either, but I just feel like the majority of this request really belongs to the light plant in getting this done. So that's it.
Are there other questions? I see Brian's hand.
So I'm in favor of this article in the understanding that it's just fresh eyes. The need for a permanent committee, I don't see today. But like the Energy Futures Task Force, it is a group of people looking at what's going on and kind of creating a framework for us to move forward. I know the light plant has been working on broadband and doing well, but I think it would be good to have a separate group be able to do the depth of understanding, citizens be able to get into the details of broadband and understand that business, because this committee has not done that. We've watched the budgets, we've answered some questions, but I can't tell you, where our limitations are on the network, what the barriers are to customer adoption. That kind of understanding, I think, would come out of this committee. It could be very helpful. So that's my thoughts.
Thank you. Pam.
I just wanted to clarify the analogy to the Energy Future Task Force is limited. It has limited utility because this one is much more focused. It's a very narrow question, and the work does specifically reside in the hands of the light plant. The Energy Future Task Force was looking at a multifaceted, major systemic problem and trying to come up with a framework for the town to go forward, drawing upon transportation, commercial, municipal. It was not like this at all. And I think it's very useful to make comparisons like that, but we have to be very careful. The charge of the Energy Future Task Force was much broader and very different and multifaceted.
Thank you. So I think we've heard from all board members. I'd like to just offer one other opinion here. And where I am more often than not inclined to accept and solicit citizen comments and citizen input and citizen committee for helping guide this community. In this particular case, I would probably be more inclined to think that what we need or what we should be thinking about is an outside independent IT expert firm to help guide us in the strategic directions. We are so caught up on a backlog and catching our breath. The idea that we have the ability to think forward at this point is probably limited. And I'm thinking that rather than ask citizens with little or no expertise in telecommunications, broadband services, wires, electricity, all that stuff, that we bring in expertise from an IT consultant. And I believe a number of years ago, we did do that prior to my being on the board, that developed the economic model, that maybe that needs to be reviewed and updated, that with given the current factors and what we know about broadband and where we're heading, that we have some things to work with that I think that the citizen committee would not have. And this is, I think that maybe part of the component of what we would look for in a consultant to help us is an outreach strategy so that we get the feedback from, as the article says, from real estate community and the business community to weigh in on with opinions about what they see as the barriers. So that's my take. A citizen committee to me at this point feels not as valuable as us taking a real hard look at the strategic direction and the goals of our broadband. And I do think, as the town manager pointed out, that is within the purview of the Light Plant Board. That's our job. And I have been remiss by not putting it on this agenda every month. And I think that it will be on the agenda from going forward. Gordon.
I agree with that.
And then
And, you
Pam.
know, I agree with that. And if this committee gave us a charge that would be like really change the picture, drive us into deficit, increase our spending or whatever, then they'd hand that to us and tell us that we have to do it. Well, wait, hold it. We're the ones that make a decision like that. You can't outsource that, right? It doesn't work actually from a governance point of view. We're the ones that drive this ship. You can't just hand the decision about how to run this business to some other group and have that bind on us.
So I just want to clarify that the citizen petition says it will make recommendations. It doesn't dictate what will happen, but those may be recommendations that are included. We don't have to accept, or the select board or town manager, whoever doesn't have to accept all the recommendations.
Sure.
But we are a rate setting board, and we have the value of seeing across electricity rates to broadband rates to look at the total impact on our customer base from any major capital investment and expansion of broadband. So that is a value that the Light Plant would bring to, the Light Plant Board would bring to the decision about how we grow our broadband. I think, Pam, I saw your hand up.
No, I just wanted to, I wanted to thank the people who are bringing this petition forward, because
Agreed.
I think that whether it passes or not, I think they have done us a great service by elevating the issue so that we are looking at it very carefully right now. I think it may have changed our behavior somewhat. And I think I just wanted to offer and hope the minutes show that this has been a gainful discussion and what they've done is helpful.
I agree. I agree. Thank you. So is the board inclined at this point to make have a vote on whether we want to support Article 41?
I would rather hear from the citizens that have their hands raised before we vote.
Okay. I just want to be mindful it's 10 minutes after 9. Wendy is the best timekeeper and has always been able to have our meetings end on time. But when I think we have a request to hear some citizens, I'm going to ask that citizens who wish to speak be brief. We've heard a lot of comment leading up to this vote. We've spent, I think, almost an hour at our last meeting also talking about this article. So I appreciate some brevity in your comments. And if somebody else has said your comment, I appreciate you not repeating what's already been said, just to be expedient of our time since it's 10 after 9. And I'll start with Mark Howell.
Thank you, Alice. I will be brief. I would remind the committee that, in fact, in planning broadband in the first place, I got excellent input from citizens informally, and I think that that is important. To the question about, is it analogous to the Energy Futures Task Force? Admittedly, it's not as broad, but it is very complex. We're talking about a business which is really, in some senses, different and more competitive than the utilities with protected, monopoly structures like the electric plant. And those require some different expertise. I have sat in the seat that Greg is in, and he's got a mountain of work to get done. And this is additional resources. It is possibly, I did not write this article. Gail brought this forward, and I saw it and recognized the value of it, particularly when I saw how under resourced people like Pamela Dritt at almost every meeting is coming forward saying, we have a problem with Concord Green. We're not serving some significant portions of our population who are living in certain kinds of communities, and we might really ask ourselves some good questions about what those goals are. So this is to some extent about what the goal is and what are the recommendations around how to complete the build to Concord citizens. And I think that that is worthy of additional resources and citizen effort to do that specific goal and inform you guys. I know how busy you are. I know how packed your agendas are. You as a board, I appreciate the fact that you're going to pay more attention to that. That's important, but you need somebody to go off and do some actual work. And this is a way of getting some more resources on that. So thank you very much. And I hope you will consider supporting this article.
Thank you. How about somebody we haven't heard from, Carlin Reed?
Hi, Carlin Reed, Chair of the PEG Access Advisory Committee. I'm going to build on Mark's comments about using this and considering this as additional resources. As you know, the PEG Access Committee has voted to recommend a yes vote on this article. We've included a statement in the meeting materials. It's the very last page. This new committee will explore the barriers to broadband adoption in a targeted, focused effort. The new committee that Gail proposes will provide the Light Board, the Select Board, and the Town Manager with information that is needed, additional information that is needed to form rational policy decisions on laying fiber to the homes and businesses broad fiber to the homes and businesses in Concord. This is why the committee has recommended affirmative action on Article 41, and we recommend that the Light Board also consider affirmative action. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott Hopkinson.
Hi, my name is Scott Hopkinson, 67 Indian Spring Road. I just want to make a couple comments about this. First of all, Alice, one of the things that I think the people that are looking forward to helping with this are to actually bring the expertise that you spoke about. For example, myself, I'm a registered professional engineer. My background is in networking. I wrote the original business model for this the broadband, and I also built the first financial model that carried out over 10 years roughly to show the dynamics of how this system would work and what the variability of doing such things as faster build outs, if we added services, and whether things such as telephone and content services were part of the plan. So the reason I'm interested in seeing this go forward is I think there is an opportunity for the light plant and the team that's running this to tap into some expertise to solve a variety of problems, both technical and non-technical. For example, one thing that I've been digging into a little bit is to how do we transition from optics to coax to solve the problem at Keyes Road or Concord Green? Is there a solution that can work there? These are the kinds of things that I think we can contribute as suggestions and ideas. We're just looking for a forum to do so. So that's my short thing. The one other thing I would comment on, Alice, your comment at earlier on tonight or today, excuse me, was that the board has been remiss in paying attention to broadband over a long period of time. And I think that's why this group feels that we know that you guys are overloaded. Why don't you let us help you think about these problems and bring them back to the town? Thank you very much.
Thank you. David Allen.
First of all, I want to underline Stephen Crane's town manager's indisputable point that there is a board responsible for this, and that's the board that's meeting right now, the light plant board. And we don't need some Johnny-come-lately to impinge on what they do. It's absolutely crucial to be clear that there is a board with responsibility, and I'm delighted to hear Alice now suggesting that telecoms has to be on the agenda every month. So why another committee? And that's the question, of course, that's before us here. So let's go back in time very briefly, but not so briefly in time, quarter of a century, 25 years, when these ideas first came to light. There was a light plant board, but you know what? There were two, not one, but two blue ribbon committees that worked over each, certainly more than a year. I forget exactly how long. Once they'd done their work, finally the system got going. Having been, shall I say, partisan to all of that, my own observation, my own judgment is that the system has developed to a point where we're at another inflection, and it's worth having some very short-term, no more than a year, support to move us beyond where we are in terms of penetration in the town. Should that committee experience mission creep? Absolutely not. This committee was presented to get the other 5% of the town on to figure out whether or not we could get the other 5% of the town. I frankly have said how difficult that's going to be, but this committee should be about getting the other 5% of the town on. Might they have some other observations? Well, maybe, but it needs to be focused on that. And at this inflection point, such a group can be very helpful. On this question of whether or not there's expertise out there, we've just had Exhibit 1, Scott Hopkinson. And I can report from this last quarter century that you look across this town, you'll be stunned and amazed at the level of talent that's available. Across the road from me is the architect of the internet. I don't know whether or not he could be seduced into spending time on this, but this town has got expertise like you wouldn't believe on this subject. I do hope that you'll see that you could have a collegial body running alongside yourselves very briefly to help at this moment to get at this question of can we put the other 5%, that's more than that people-wise, on and help move this forward. Thank you.
So thank you. I just want to clarify one thing I said, or maybe it was misunderstood. When I look at the petition article, it states 5 to 7 members. There is no member stated with any requested expertise in telecommunications or broadband. That was the only reason I made that comment. It has other interests, but that's not one of them. And I felt that that was a mistake. Okay, next, coming to the end here, it's 918. V. Carl, and then Pamela Dritt.
The mute is on.
Do we still have V. Carl?
The mute is on.
I see. I'm wondering whether we still have B. Carl. I think we should move on to Pamela Dritt. And maybe we don't have Pamela. Okay. I think we have now taken all comment. Do we have a motion from the board on this article?
Here's
Oh, wait.
Pamela.
Oh, Pamela's back. Okay.
And perhaps V. Carl wasn't offered the opportunity to unmute either. I really appreciate that you are responsible for this and that you have the power, but consider that this group, the proposed group, is very unlikely to recommend any such wildly non-business successful things. Instead, they're much more likely to give you very valuable information that you couldn't get by doing it every month in short terms. It would also allow, the benefit that you could get from this is tremendous. Please support it. But most importantly also, it faces towards the community itself. It has an interface that would allow the community to get on board in this in a way that you can't do. It would bring people along to the way you're already thinking community-wide in a way that you don't have time in the months, in the monthly board meetings. So please support it. The benefit of this far outweighs any risks of interfering with the governance. I don't think that it will interfere with governance, and it can give immense benefits both to you and the town governing and the town manager, and to the community itself. It can teach the whole community what this valuable asset is and how we can best use it, and get us all involved in ways that are supportive rather than critical.
Great, thank you. Gordon.
Okay, how about this, Alice? What if we say that whoever, that we need a motion to support this, and whoever moves agree to be the liaison to this committee?
All right, we need a motion.
Are you serious? I mean, it seems a little bit, I did that a little bit in jest, but.
No, I think we've discussed this for over an hour. And I think we've heard a lot of citizen comments. I think this board is ready to at least put on the table a motion for this article, whether we want to support it or not, and take a vote. We have a motion.
Well, yeah. Go ahead, Brian.
I move that the board support Article 41. Do you need anything else in the motion?
No, I think that's sufficient, as written.
As written.
All right, we'll take a roll call vote.
We need
Brian.
a second.
Oh, a second. I have a second on that motion. I do not see a second. So either there's a problem with, do I have a different motion on the table that would warrant it, that would garner a second on the motion?
Well, I hate to do this, but I mean, I guess the other motion might be, I mean, we don't have to address this at all, right? But if we have to address this, having talked about it so much, there could be a motion that says the board moves to vote not to support it, which I'd rather not do. But I don't understand how procedurally we get out of this mess,
I'd rather
there are three options on the table. You can vote to move affirmative action, meaning we approve and we agree with this article. We can say no action, which means we don't agree with the article, and therefore we don't approve of it going forward. Or we can say the board is going to basically abstain, which I think is the inappropriate one, considering this directly affects the purview of the light board. So I would argue against an abstention from taking a position on something so critical to the functioning of our board.
I agree with that.
So I think we also should make sure that when we do a motion, that it's usually in the affirmative. If we were to do it in the negative, I think that would be confusing.
It doesn't matter. It's a vote. It can do either one. You can take them, there was nobody willing to second a motion to approve the article. So the next alternative is to hear a motion that would say that the motion is to recommend no action on Article 41. Is somebody willing to make that motion? Gordon,
I move to take no action on Article 41.
and do I have a second? I think Wendy, I can't hear you, Wendy. You're not muted, but I can't hear you.
Somebody will second it. Wendy or me?
I just want to comment that.
I
Can't hear you.
I don't know why. Sorry, I was just going to comment that if we have to make a decision about why we would take no action on this article, that's all.
Could you say that again?
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute, I just want to, I'll jump in there, because I think what Wendy's saying is we consider why, and I strongly support an explanation which can be very succinct and brief, but it can also be supportive of some of the themes of what this article is trying to promote. So is that right, Wendy?
Correct.
And who's willing to make the motion?
Well, the question then becomes, what's the mechanism for making, is a statement made inside the motion? I mean, is the explanation in the motion?
If the board votes no action on this amendment, on this article, we would have the opportunity, and that's the next question for us to address. Does somebody from the board want to make a short 1-minute presentation at town meeting as to the position of the board? That would be the next option. So
I won't be in town.
So let's take, that shouldn't be the reason we vote or not vote. So let's take a vote on the motion, on the article, and then decide if we're going to make a presentation at town meeting. So do we have a second on the motion, which is a recommendation of no action on Article 41? Is there a second?
Well, I think Wendy raised her hand first.
So I see a second, then we're ready for a vote. And I'm going to go around my screen as I see it. Brian,
No.
You're against the motion.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, because you made the motion a negative. So
Yes, I'm just making
I'm
sure.
I'm in support of the article.
Okay.
But this is the confusion that
It
yeah.
would be just as confusing in the opposite. Gordon,
Yeah. Yes.
Wendy. Yeah. Pam,
Just confirming, yes is no action, right?
correct. You vote with the motion.
Yes.
And Alice, yes. The vote of the board is 4-1 to urge no action on this article. Now, the next quick question we should decide is, do we want to have 1 minute at the podium to make a presentation about why, and then who will do that? Pam?
I think we should, and I think we can use it to, testify, as it were, that we hear that we need to step up on this, and that the light plan and board recognizes our responsibility here, are supportive of a more accelerated approach to thoughtful approach or whatever. I just think we should do that, and I think the chair of the light board should deliver that message.
Wendy, we can't hear you.
I don't know what's going on.
There you are.
Yeah, no, I was agreeing with Pam, and I agree the chair should present it because I think that's tradition, right?
Okay. I would be willing to deliver it. Pam, would you like to draft it?
I'll
Draft a 1 minute statement?
I'll work with you on it. Yeah, sure.
Okay. Okay. We have a vote of no action, and we have a decision that I will present a 1 minute statement for the board on our decision not to support this action, this citizen petition. Okay, it is now 9.
Oh, and just one thing, I mean, sorry, this could actually be a new topic, but to expand that, it's like when we say no, we could also offer something to the public too. There's the acknowledgement that rollout slowed down during COVID. There's the acknowledgement, which I feel a little bit sheepish about, saying, hey, maybe we could have spent more time as a board looking at telecom, but I think more positively and more constructively, away from the apology, but more towards like a proactive step. The board is actually going to help you here. And if you could capture that in your public comments, that'd be great.
Just, if I may, just so, because Alice and I work, I think it's very simple. It's that, we very supportive of increased broadband, however we want to say it. Light Plant is the operation that is in charge of this. It is continuing its efforts to do that, and will be increasing them. And we thank the petitioners for the work they did. We hope it increases understanding of this issue, and we will work with the citizenry to continue to try to get information from them and get information out to them. I think, is that it?
Yeah. Encourage people to attend the monthly meeting where there'll be an item on the broadband each month.
And actually, to the petitioners, you've got my email. Don't put this in the minutes, please, but it's gordon.brockway@yahoo.com. Reach out to me, and I can help move your message forward.
Okay, thank you. I think we are ready for a motion to adjourn.
I just want to make sure that I was speaking to Brian and everyone else. Do we have the right message here? I think the messaging is important. Is what I just outlined basically it.
So,
Wendy, we can hear you.
The only thing that I'd add is that, we have new staff. So there's been an increase in staff, and I think we have more capability to address this going forward. But, I think that's delayed our attention to the issue too.
Yeah,
I agree.
I voted no, so I'll hold my comments. I think that we're making a lot of promises to the petitioner, but our actions in the past have shown that we haven't put enough focus on this. And now we're saying we're not going to let you make a committee so that we can make promises. So I think the biggest part of this is that this board fulfill on those promises.
That's the intent.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I thank the petitioner for helping identify the problems with the current board, my leadership. So I appreciate that, and we'll definitely make some changes for the board going forward.
Alice, could I just request that you not take such heavy responsibility? I'm serious. I don't think it's true or fair or anything. And I don't think it's useful for you to be so self-flagellating.
And Alice, I would agree. This is something that past chairs haven't put on the agenda very often. So it's not something related to you.
Well, thank you all, but I listened and take to heart the purpose behind the petition. So this is good. All right, do I have a motion now to adjourn? Wendy.
Article that we didn't vote on. So home rule petition, Article 31. Were we going to talk about that?
Did we vote to support that at the last meeting?
We did vote to support it.
Okay.
Do we have?
I guess. Thanks.
Is there anything anyone wants to add to the conversation on Article 31? I think Wendy is right. There was a request that we talk about it at this meeting and at the last meeting, even after we took the vote.
Oh, actually, yes, there was. That would be me. Absolutely. Thank you, Wendy. I wanted to get a report from, if there is one, about whether there have been any changes, especially with respect to the affordable housing exemption. And if there, because that is a troublesome exemption for some people. And I think we agreed that if we had nothing to say about something that didn't yet exist, we wouldn't opine, but if there had been changes that we might want to. So Alice, has anything changed in Article 31?
No, with regard to affordable housing, no.
Okay.
Any changes would have to come from the floor. And I see no other comments from the board. Are we ready to adjourn? And do I have a motion to do so?
So
I think-
moved.
Okay, let's roll call vote going around my screen. Brian,
Yes.
Gordon,
Yes.
Wendy. I think that's a yes. Pam
Yes.
and Alice, yes. Thank you all.
Thanks, guys.
Good conversation today. Appreciate everyone's thoughtful considerations of all the issues.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Chris.
Bye now.